No worries at all. So anyways, welcome everybody. I'm Chris Tilburg, co-founder and CEO at Evolutia. As a few of you know me from the previous life, I founded and scaled another organization in the similar space, kind of what we call Gen 2 or Generation 2 automation now, including technologies like robotic process automation, intelligent document processing, and so forth. Across hundreds of projects, thousands of deployments. We learned a ton over the past, say, decade, and we really came away with our scars. And this is why I couldn't be more excited today to introduce you to what I truly feel is the next wave, a completely disruptive, transformative, third generation intelligent automation platform that we support end to end at Evolutia, Kognitos. So
Yeah,
I want to start.
let me just
Good.
let me get background because I think I didn't explain Alicia on the invite. I put Kognitos. Kognitos is the software provider. Evolutia is the one partner, right? So think of them as the professional services arm of Kognitos. That's kind of how that works right now, right?
Yeah, everything from procurement of the platform, opportunity assessment, so forth, and implementation, everything downstream there. But just want to kick it off by just kind of asking the question out there, why is it that when we go out to automate processes, many times it actually creates more work for us? And this is what we kind of refer to as the productivity paradox. And as even Ben can attest to, I met him a couple years back when we did a CXO lab in my previous life, talking about how to get automation.
Apologize for the phone.
Oh, it's all good. How we're trying to get automation programs to scale. What are the challenges related to that? Why? What are the factors that limit these things? And at the core of it, it's that the approach we used to computing simply hasn't changed in the past 50 years until now. Technology like robotic process automation, at the end of the day, it just emulates people's use of the mouse and keyboard, clicks, fields, and so forth. And to get to scale, you have to kind of bolt together different technologies to get there. And if you think about it, if you've ever experienced automation, you start out by having, in the previous life, we had to map our business processes. How do we do business today? And then map as many exceptions or variants as we could think of up front, which obviously takes the time to value out further. And then process complexity, unfortunately, until now, limited our scalability. And at the end of the day, since the previous generation of these technologies didn't have the ability to recognize and learn from mistakes in real time, it ended up being extremely costly and time consuming, which drained our ROI. And to this point, HFS Research came out with a study recently that only 40% of RPA licenses that have been purchased are actually in production and being used. So that's a massive amount of shelfware out there. And on the other side of the coin, literally only a little more than half of automation programs meet the expectations that they set forth in the beginning. So let me give you just a quick run through of an example here, right? So AP invoice processing, everyone handles invoices in their business. If you wanted to automate that, say in SAP, Oracle, whatnot, you basically have to start out by bringing in a ton of consultants to map out the processes, all the rules, all the logic, and then you're going to have to buy at least two technologies, being like a document processing and then robots to handle all the downstream functions. Then you're going to bring in your developers, your data scientists to build who speak code, to build the models, the templates, the workflows, to get it in production. And this normally takes weeks, if not months to years to get into production. And unfortunately, the minute that it gets there, things start to break, things change, and tickets arise from that. So what happens? Managed services, in our old business, that was our favorite business because it was ongoing forever. Things break, people have to come in and fix them. So then just get into this continuous game of whack-a-mole, breaking, fixing, and so forth. And what happens is your business leadership eventually says, stop, or they limit the scope. And what does that do? Where we end up not seeing the ROI that we initially thought we were going to out there. So now let's talk about the future for a minute. Welcome to Kognitos. It's the first smart operating system for automation in the world. So from today forward, as opposed to the inverse, we actually can make the computer work for us, just like if you brought in a new employee or intern. We simply give it a set of instructions, and we basically tell it to process those instructions. And when it has questions, it's just going to come back to you in plain English and ask for support. And then you just watch technologies like natural language processing and generative AI do what it needs to do behind the scenes, pulling in all the required components automatically under one platform, under one contract. And at the end of the day, it's true emulation of human behavior, something that can take instruction, ask questions, learn from them. And it's the next wave of automation. And really, it's the beginning of how we think, how we interact with computers. One of the coolest differentiators is how the platform uses what we call English as code. It's like the Rosetta Stone because only 0.5 of the global population knows how to code, speaks that language. Meaning before, to automate, you needed coders and developers that spoke that language, and the translation between the business and those teams was very challenging. And that's why the time to deployment, time to value was usually a long process. And last but not least here, using context-based learning, when the technology gets to a point in the process when it doesn't know what to do, as opposed to stopping the entire batch or job or process, it will kick one out to the side and continue to run everything else that it's good with, and it pings a human basically back in the same English as code and asks for help. And then when the human responds, fixes the problem, AI has the ability to learn, train, and so that way you will not, encounter that same problem moving forward. So it's self-healing if you think about it from that perspective. Also, Kognitos is the first truly cloud-native, serverless cognitive operating system out there. It means that all the infrastructure costs and IT burden that was related to automation in the past is essentially eliminated compared to like your traditional RPA solutions and so forth. And finally, since Kognitos doesn't use bots, it's like turning on 1,000 digital interns or twins basically loose to execute your processes in real time. I'll wrap up here because I know the start of the show is Nick's demo with the same exact example we talked about before. So this is what AP invoice would look like processing with Kognitos. You want to process the invoicing into your system of record. Essentially, you go into the concierge, the developer platform there, and you feed it your work instructions, your happy path, English as code. Well, it goes off, runs the automation, and only pauses, and I'm going to say pause, not crash, when a question arises. You feed that back in plain English, it learns, it hardens the process, and gets better and better every day. And basically, you're off and you get your results. So at the end of the day, it's a much simpler, faster, and more cost-effective solution to automation, which means you have a quicker path from process to profit. You're getting your processes automated in days and weeks versus months. You can tackle really infinite scale and complexity with a smart operating system that has a cost-effective pricing model built in from the beginning. Nick, you want to take over from here?
Sure. Thank you, Chris. Hey, folks. My name is Nick Rudy. I'm a solutions engineer here with Kognitos, and I'm going to take you through a couple of use cases that we have here that we've seen relatively commonly here at Kognitos, and so hopefully we can, as I go through these demonstrations, it'll kind of get your juices flowing as to what types of processes you could automate or what you could use Kognitos for. So the first one that I'm going to show you is actually a reconciliation cash application process. And so in this demonstration, what we're doing is we're receiving an email. That email has a remittance attached to it. And then we're going to extract information from that remittance. We're also going to extract information from SAP. In this case, we're actually pulling it from an Excel file to mimic that SAP interaction. And then we're going to use Kognitos to review that data. And then the results of that review will be sent off via email to a user. So
hold on for me 1 second. Bobby, any chance? Bobby, any chance you're still there?
I'm here.
Perfect. Okay, keep going.
Okay. Hi, Bobby.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
We happen to be having a conversation about this exact thing right now. So.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. So this is going to be a simplified version, just to get the point across. But here's what this process looks like in Kognitos. So here you're seeing that English is code that Chris just talked about. We're getting the attachment, we're extracting information, saying get the first document, or the document's first customer number, getting the table from that document, and then getting the information from the ERP, comparing it, and then we're looking at that comparison and saying if it matches, send an email to this person. If it doesn't match, send this email to that same person with a different subject and but the same attachment. This is a lot, so we also put this into a process flow visualization so that you can see exactly what's happening with a lot less words. So you see the start, the input of the processing. At the same time, we have the ERP coming through. Then we have the data being aggregated, calculations being made, everything converted to an Excel table, and then all of this information is sent off via email to the end user for further review. So here's the email that actually kicks off the process, and here's the remittance that we're sending in. So as you can see, it's pretty standard table in there. Got some summary information at the top. I'm going to go ahead and hit send and go into my view runs, and you're going to see it kick off right there. And so rather than going into this and watching it step by step, I ran this earlier, so I'm gonna just step you through what this looks like. So you'll see all the steps on the left. Everything that's happening is logged on the right, every single step. So here we can see that exact remittance that was sent through. If we go back to the run, I can click on the payment number and we can see exactly where that came from in the document. And if we click on the actual payment number, it'll show us exactly where it came from in that document. So it's completely auditable right there for you. Everything is in plain English, as Chris already stated. And then here's the table that we pulled out from that remittance. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use this table as a base to compare against this ERP table that you're going to see right now. So here's the ERP table. And we're going to essentially create a third table from these two, which is going to look a lot like that initial remittance, but now we're going to add a row for the ERP totals and add a column for the ERP totals. We're also going to add a column for matched, yes or no. This way it's painfully obvious for the user of this document to see, hey, this payment matches or it doesn't, and see exactly where that document number is. And this is exactly what's sent off to the user in this email. So let's take a real quick peek at that email. Sorry, I got a little ahead of my video. So here's the email. So here's the Excel file that's attached. Again, it's basically the exact same information. Now, Chris was talking about how we can create processes that are more or less self-healing, right? And I want to show you how we do that next. So I'm going to take you over to the Exceptions Center. And so in the Exceptions Center, you'll see the exact similar remittance on the right-hand side. But if you look very closely, it says payment ID instead of payment number. So the Kognitos is saying, hey, I can't find the payment number. So what we could do is we could just click and highlight that value and just provide it. If we wanted to, we could just as easily click submit here. But what I'd rather do is I'd rather teach Kognitos how to compute that answer on its own. And so in this case, I'm going to say get the documents first, and then we're going to say payment ID instead of payment number. And this way we can find it, we can hit next, we can retain this learning within the bounds of Kognitos, so that going forward, if you have a document that's shaped similarly, and I'm going to pause it right here for a second. If you have a document that's shaped similar, you can apply that learning so that it's not going to continuously break on something like this. And what's actually powering this learning is something that we call context-based learning. And it's worth mentioning here because context-based learning is basically looking at the largest text on the page, looking at any tables in that page, and looking at the headers in that page. And based on those criteria, saying, this looks like this over here, and this looks like this over here. So that going forward, when it hits another document that looks somewhat similar, it can apply the same learnings, right? So I know that that's a very overly simplistic way of describing how we apply learnings, but I thought it was worth mentioning that while we're here. And so that brings me to the end of the first demonstration. And I know I went really, really fast, but so let me stop here. Are there any questions?
Sure. Love the English as code concept. But common things like sending an email and pulling data out of a spreadsheet are easy to do and learn. How should I think about enterprise things I want to do with this information, like post it to ERP,
Like post it. Oh, right.
payables.
My apologies. Okay, so when I'm going through this demonstration, I always use email as an ingress and an egress, but realistically, we can just as easily integrate with any ERP out there. Create that integration. We have we call them books. Um, I don't have a demo stage to show you that, but we do have those integrations available to you so that instead of having it go out as an email, you could have that be sent out to your ERP.
Yeah, I
Right,
think,
but
yeah,
how
think-
do you map from English to actually doing something in an ERP system?
So that's going to, okay, if I understand your question, let me just repeat this back to you. Like in the terms of SAP, are you asking how would you relate to a specific T code?
Well, you're dating yourself, but yes.
There's a terrible joke there. I'm not gonna
it's
yeah.
one thing. It's one thing for Kognitos as a framework to be able to send an email and to read a document and to figure all that out, right? And I just type English. But when I say, okay, if this payment advice is blank blank whatever, then post it to this account and this trading structure, and I'll be done with it. How do you translate that?
So we do that generally speaking with like a line and a subline. So you would say like run T code T784. I'm just making that up. With and then have an indent and have different lines that would call out the data that is to be delivered with that call. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of oversimplified that, but that's the basic
yeah,
gist.
and that's something that we should probably do a better job clarifying in the future, that the inputs and outputs on both sides of Kognitos are extremely flexible, right? Could be system of record, could be a T drive or repository where tons of documents live, could be, and then the output could be a JSON, could be an Excel, could be an API, pushed right into the system back in. So it's extremely flexible. This is just for demo purposes.
I think if I might, I'll clarify or follow up on the question maybe. Yeah. So, but how does it take a common sentence in English, right? I think he's one of the how-to of, okay, I know if I'm hooking up to SAP, I need to take that link, that sentence and convert it into a series of actions that SAP will understand, or Oracle will understand, or Workday will understand, or my proprietary system will understand, right? How does it, what is the actual process that it goes through to convert and then know, okay, shoot, we're hooked up to SAP, therefore we need to convert that into an SAP framework.
Yep. And so there's
into my SAP framework.
Yeah.
And there's a number there. The answer is a series of steps. So first off, when we're talking about integrations, we're going to be talking about books. As you can see on my screen, we have a few books. These are just what's local to this department. We have books that you can add, and those books would contain your credentials for your ERP. Right. And now if there is a book or if there's an integration you're looking for that doesn't exist, we have at least two mechanisms that you can use. Number one, as you can see, I don't have it on this one, but what you can do is we can add this HTTP book, right? So you can absolutely add the ability to create your own gets, puts, posts, so on and so forth, with HTTP actions. Number two, we are working on what we're calling a BDK, a book development kit, so that you can create your own books to integrate into Kognitos with whatever system you're looking to target.
Now we're talking, right? How do I, as a huge digital enterprise, teach Kognitos how I do things once? And then allow you to tell it to do.
To give you a context, I mean, so Paul works for HP. He's probably going to be the next enterprise architect for HP, right? And he's distinguished developer. He's just HP distinguished, right? So when he's asking questions, he's thinking about HP globally.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely. And so to that end, let me show you one other thing. So we have what we call departments. So that you can segregate your processes according to your organization, right? So in this case, I'm just illustrating with logistics, marketing, IT. We have the most in finance and accounting. So I can switch over to that department and I can see what processes exist within the bounds of that department. Now, there's 2 points I really want to hit on right here is that when we're creating these processes, we're creating the happy path, right? We're not building out the exception handling and going back through the SDLC to redeploy this, right? That's a lot. And so that's very important in the context of Kognitos because you're creating this happy path, which will ultimately be a living, breathing standard operating procedure. So you end up with this corporate memory, if you will, and the learnings that we apply, right? So as you go through these exceptions, you're going to teach it how to handle said exceptions, just like as Chris was mentioning, the digital intern, right? So as you build up these learnings, that becomes your corporate memory. That becomes your tribal knowledge, if you will, within your organization, so that when Bob or Marcy go to retire, you don't lose everything that's in their head. It's day forward, you have all of your tribal knowledge within the bounds of Kognitos so that you can continue operations even more efficiently than you did yesterday.
All right. I want to
Yeah,
be, you said you
I
had,
get that. That's a good pattern, and I have lots of questions. I'll save them for another time. But
well, my question is real quick. I'm gonna take a quick poll. Guys, how many guys out there would like to see a more detailed of Cognitos maybe in another week? Anybody?
See, can't tell.
Can't tell.
I
It just
see
sounded
3.
3 or 4. Yeah, I see 3 or 4. All right. So maybe
here,
we'll have a
I'll be
so
digital.
we'll do a second session on Cognitos.
Okay.
And same thing that we did with
Mhm.
what I'll do is maybe set up one for a few of these, and then I'll send it out to everybody and just say, hey, if you want to join, you can join it. All right. So I want to be quick. Nick, you said you had another demo. Do you want to do 5 minutes?
You know what? It's 7 minutes, so we'll stop with the demos for right
Okay,
now.
perfect.
And I mean, I'm happy
do
to
another.
continue conversations. I do want to mention very briefly. So Chris has been a spectacular partner to us. Thank you, Chris, for always being there. Also, my partner in crime, Kirk Neal, is also on this call. He's our account executive. So Chris and Kirk would be your point of contact, and I would be there to be backup dancer for them. So
Yeah. I'll work with Chris and get everything scheduled.
Sounds
So, all right. So here's what I'm excited about, and so maybe in the next demo you can talk about this. What if I could have AI agents go out and do master data management, data governance, build my data catalog, build my data stuff, and hook it up to those agents into this. Therefore, I can just basically, as if I want to change data quality, data standard, data governance policies, I can just do it with a prompt, right? Right. So I just have communications with my data quality and data governance or internal controls, right?
I want to go. Let me shift that just a little bit, right?
Okay.
Because with Cognitos, we can do prompts for GPT, any GPT model, really any LLM that you're looking to connect to, within the bounds of a process, which means you're basically doing a prompt on Rails. As you saw, everything is completely auditable. I don't know enough about master data management to speak towards your specific question, but there is something that I want to show you that I believe would be very impactful to what you just said, because what you just said sounds like an awful lot of transactions to me. Sounds like a lot of work. And
think about it for a $22 billion company. Yeah. So.
Yep. So one of the things I just want to illustrate to you folks is something that Chris has already mentioned, but it's so important to me and so important to Kognitos, I really want to reiterate this. So this is a slide that I normally use to illustrate how Kognitos functions. And so if you're thinking about a team of 20 people that has 1,000 items to do, it takes 10 minutes to do each one, right? That's a whole day of work. And what's happening is they're picking something up, they're working it, and putting it over here. Picking it up, working it, putting it over here. And this downstream person is working, and they're reliant on me to get my job done. What that means is this person downstream is constantly context switching. Every time there's an output, they have to turn to me, or they have to figure out how their day works. By using Kognitos' concurrent processing, which is enabled through serverless code and a suite of AWS services, you can, instead of having those 1,000 transactions all piled up in a queue, you can send them all over at once and get them all back within 10 minutes. It literally reshapes your user's day and how they perform in their job. And also, I just want to point out, this is also the same paradigm as RPA, because RPA, you have work queues, you have underlying infrastructure, you have the same serial processing scenario. And so it's worth just mentioning, you have the same problem as if you had a full physical staff. I'm not going to pretend I didn't just hear that. But anyway, so I want to just like emulate or just kind of show you what this looks like. And the best way that I can think of doing this is I can just open up a whole bunch of emails at once. This would be similar to if I just sent off a whole bunch of API calls at once. I can just send, and send these all off. And not one is not going to block the other. If I hit an exception on the first one, it doesn't matter. It's just going to pause, right? And it's going to, but the other one's on a completely separate track. So they're not overlapping each other. They're not impeding each other. Also, what this enables is a consumption-based commercials model, which I'd encourage you to speak more with Kirk about, or Chris.
Yeah.
So I think now I'll hand it back to Chris.
Hey, Nick, is there an API to submit the English language to, or do you have to go through the toolkit?
Let me answer with, okay. There is an API to start a process and to deliver a payload to.
Mm-hmm.
But that is kicking off a process that was created in the English as code in the Kognitos platform. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you have to go through the platform to create the English segment. Well, the reason I say that, just real quickly, is I'm just thinking out loud. So if I have something like a Python library that's reading bank transactions and I'm using SpellPy to interpret the descriptions in the bank transactions, I can then use NLTK to create human language and then fit that into Kognitos to be able to do bank transaction summarization and then feed it back into the ERP system.
So, okay. Thank you for explaining that, because this is something that we don't normally have on a first conversation. This is not first date material. We do support Python scripts within the bounds of Kognitos. That is beyond the scope of the breadth of my knowledge. I'd be happy to put you in touch with our engineering team as to how we would exactly support that, but we can support Python scripts within the bounds of Kognitos.
Cool.
Any other questions real quick before we move on to Guildhawk?
Yeah, requirements.
I have one question. So this English as a code, so this specific English script that we kind of looked into, you can either script it by hand, or it is what you are saying is can, as Marty suggested, can be generated.
We do have a means of generating it, but we are working on a even better way to leverage actually LLMs on the front. GPT on the front end to make the English more free-flowing into something that our patented natural language interpreter can completely understand.
But there is a specific syntax that it has to follow. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's still code.
Okay.
There is still a syntax. Yes, I know. It is still, there are still syntactical nuances. I'm not gonna sit here and say there's not.
Yeah, thank you.
Well,
Yeah,
I
that's
think
right.
I think the difference is like as someone who came from like the UiPath world and RPA and things like that. Yes, it was low code. We had drag and drop activities we'd bring it in, but and if there's a problem, you got to open it up, look under the hood, and guess what you got? Yeah. So this is the difference. It's like I went through some basic training last week to be able to, speak more eloquently to it. And I built a script that went in and extracted data from an invoice, put it in a table, sorted it, did what I wanted, and emailed it to myself in 15 minutes. And that was like, holy crap. You know what I mean? Like, how long that would have taken me in UiPath, and I would have had to buy 2 pieces of tech. So anyways, we
What
can
I
have a
like
much
about it-
deeper technology, conversation around that when the time's appropriate.
And what I like about it is anything that has controls, it's already, because of its nature, it basically has audibility right away, right? So internal controls, governance, anything around that, it's ideal for it. All right, I'm gonna stop us there because we're gonna do another one
Cool.
anyhow, and I'm running
Thanks,
late.
guys.
So